Hi, my name is Ali, and this is a quick overview of Dungeon Architect, procedural dungeon generation tool. So I'm going to go ahead and place in a dungeon actor. So do that by going to all classes, search for dungeon. Right, so just place that onto the scene, reset its transform, and so now I have a dungeon actor. Now, before I use this actor to generate my dungeon, I need to first specify what meshes go along with this dungeon, right? So for example, I need to specify what mesh I'd like to assign to the floors, to the walls, to the doors, and so on and so forth. So the way I do that is by creating a theme mapping, right? So right click anywhere on your content browser, go to miscellaneous, and you see a new option called dungeon. So then I click on that. Let's give it a name. Theme. Right, so this data asset file lets you define the mapping of the meshes that needs to go with your dungeon, right? So if I double click this, it'll open up the Dungeon Architect editor. So it comes with a bunch of predefined marker points, right? And here's where you define the meshes that go along with your dungeon. And on the right side, you see a preview panel. It gives you a live preview of how your dungeon might look like while you're designing it. So let's go ahead and add a ground mesh, specify to the plugin what mesh needs to be attached to the ground wherever a floor is expected, right? So when I drag a link out of it, you see add mesh node option. So this is a mesh node, right? If you specify a mesh on this, then anywhere where a ground is expected, it would insert this mesh. So right now no mesh is selected, so let's go ahead and select a mesh. I'm going to choose this static mesh, which is just a quad of 400 by 400. Right, so now as soon as I select this, the thumbnail over here got updated, and you also see the live preview over here. Even this got updated. So what has happened here is that it has taken this mesh and placed it in all the places where a floor was expected. Right, now let's go ahead and define a wall mesh. And you see walls are now placed where they're expected, and let's go ahead and place in a door mesh. And let's add some pillars between the walls. I can just copy paste it as well. Not too big. I think this is about right. Right. So you see, as I'm choosing selecting my meshes, like this live preview, it gets updated automatically. So it's useful when you're designing it. Right, now let's also add fence meshes. So the way the dungeon works is it creates rooms and it creates corridors that connect these rooms. Right, so corridors don't have walls around them; they have fences. Right, so let's go ahead and add a mesh node here. Let's add a fence mesh. Yeah, so you can see we have this populated. You know what? Let's choose something else. And you have the fence separator. Let's place in a pillar like so. And and let's add a support structure on the top. So you can add multiple meshes within the same marker. So it's going to insert multiple meshes within the same point. So I also want something on top of this along with this. So let's copy paste that. Select the right now. Let me uncheck this. Right, now let's go ahead and add some stairs. So you see stairs expected here, but since we didn't specify the stair mesh, it's not adding it. So let's go ahead and add a stair. Add mesh node, stair. Let's go and add this now. We have another mesh for the stairs. Now, when I add this, you can have multiple meshes within the same marker, right? So it's going to emit either both of them or any one of them, depending on how you set them up. So, in the first, it's going to execute each of these in order. So, I'm not sure if you can see it in the video, but there's a marker point here. There's an execution index here that says 1, 2. If I switch the positions, so if I switch this here, this becomes 1 and this becomes 2, right? So the way it works is that it executes this mesh and determines whether this mesh needs to be inserted in the scene. And the way it does that is by looking at this affinity value. So since it's 1.0, the probability is 1. So 100% of the time is going to insert this mesh, right? And there's also a flag that says consume on attach. So if this mesh is inserted, then it would stop the execution. It would stop processing the nodes, all the other sibling nodes that comes after it, right? So if I uncheck this, so if I go here and uncheck this, then it would also add this node. It will also execute this node and add this mesh as well, right? So consume and attach stops the other nodes from being processed. It just consumes this and it comes out of it. Let's just add the other ones real quick. So stair 2x is stair just twice the size. Right now we have this empty space here, right? So it expects some it expects a wall of half the size. So let's specify that as well. Now let's choose this itself. Right now it has added it, but the offset is wrong. So let's go ahead and bring this down by 200 units. So minus 200 units. And you can see that it's looking good now. There's a bug here. I'm going to fix that. It's supposed to bring this height down by 1, but it's not doing it as of now. I'm going to fix that. So it's looking pretty good. There's also one thing called half wall separator. So you can add a pillar half the size here. So let's go ahead and do that. Right, now let's go ahead and save this and come back to our main scene, and let's select the dungeon that we've just placed and assign this scheme object into this dungeon actor. And once that's done, let's go ahead and build our dungeon, and there we have it. Right, now let's go ahead and add some more stuff to this. Right, these walls are just of the same type. Let's add some variation to them. So let me move this aside and add a few more walls to this. And set the probability to 0.2. Change this to, I don't know, maybe this one. So you see some of them 20% of the time, since the probability is 0.2, 20% of the time this might get selected. Right, so here for example we have this wall, and if this doesn't get selected, then it moves to the next one, and let's change this as well. Let's have a window in this case. Right, and if neither of these are selected, then it processes the third one, which has a affinity of 1, which is 100% of the time. It falls back to this. Right. Right, now let's start decorating this room. Right, now what if you wanted to attach some stuff, say torches, on these pillars inside the room? Right, you can do that by creating your own custom markers. So these are the built-in markers that are defined by the algorithm. So when it generates this dungeon, it specifies where the walls are to be placed, where the floors are to be placed, the stairs, the doors, and so on. You can define your own markers. So for example, I want to decorate this wall, right? I want to place some decorations on these pillars. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and add a new marker node. I'm going to call this pillar decoration, for example, right? And I'm going to emit this marker out of an existing node. So for example, if I emit a pillar decoration, marker, so whenever this mesh is inserted into the scene, it would also insert this marker, which would go ahead and process the logic inside this. So you can go ahead and create a new say a mesh node here. So whenever this pillar is inserted into the scene, it would go ahead and process this, which would come over here and insert anything that's defined here relative to this mesh. And so let's go ahead and let's say add I don't know, let's add this, right? So I think it's added to the scene, but it's over here, down here. So let's fix that by changing the offset. So I'm going to select this and bring this up by, I don't know, 200, I guess. Let's increase the scale first. It's too small. Alright, now let's bring this up by 250. Turn that around by 180 degrees. So it's facing the other way. Now let's bring that forward a bit by 30, no, minus 30, minus 20. That's good enough. Let's see how something attached to all of these meshes. Of course, you can change the probability. So if I make this say 0.5, it's 50% of the time it might attach it. So some of them have it, right? So now this looks pretty. It looks good, but it has no flames in it, right? So let's go ahead and attach another mesh that looks like flames, right? So I have. I'm going to create another marker. I'm going to call this flames, and and in the content browser. Now let's go back to this. Right, so let's add a mesh node. Right, so this is just a simple mesh that I created. It has a high emissive value. It looks like a flame, right? So I want this to be attached on this candle, right? So I'm going to go ahead and so I've defined a flames marker. So anyone who emits this would have this attached to them. So I want this candle to emit a flame marker so that the dungeon generator goes and emits a flame in that position. So let's go ahead and emit a flame marker. Right. Okay, it's here, but it's the offset is not quite right. So let's fix that. So I'm going to select the emitter node, the one that this candle is emitting, and I'm going to change the offset. It's about 30, I guess, and 30. Alright. I think it's 28, 28. Let's change this to 1. There's a lot of candles everywhere. Right, now just go ahead and decorate the walls. Let's put in some paintings on the walls. Let's create a wall paintings. And these, I'm going to emit these off of this this node. So we have wall paintings. Let's also emit a wall furniture. Right. So whenever this empty wall is inserted, it would also emit these two markers, which would then go and process whatever is defined in here, right? So let's go and add some decorative stuff. I have a few painting meshes. So right. So now this mesh is inserted, but I think the offset is wrong here. So let's go ahead and change that. Rotate it along C by 180 degrees, and we have this here. Right. So now we don't want it in all the walls. So let's reduce the affinity to point, say 2, I guess. 2. Right. So 0.5. Right now, let's add a few more. And select all of them and bring this down by 0.1. Right, and add them. Right, now let's go ahead and add some furnitures. Right, so I'm going to drag in a node. Let's see, table. Let's say I want this. Right, so all these empty walls, they have this table added to it, right? So let's fix the offset. Select this node, change the offset. I think it needs to be moved forward in the y-axis. Okay, so -60, I guess. Alright, and it's facing the wrong direction, so let's turn it around by 180. Alright, let's add a few more. Right, now let's change the probability to say 0.125, I guess, or 0.2 would be fine. Right, so now we have this. Right now, what if we wanted to place some stuff on top of this table? Right, so you want to have another category where you can place stuff on top of things. Right, so let's go ahead and create another one. Create another marker node. Call this table top decoration. Right, so stuff that comes on top of the table. Right, so this is stuff you put here. So let's add it. Right, so we want this this marker to be executed whenever we insert a table like this. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and emit table top decoration. Right, but the point is, it's again we have to fix the offset because it's now coming in the board. So let's select this mesh, find it in the content browser, and see its dimensions. You see that its height is about 140, right? You can see in the tooltip. So let's go back here, and in this emission marker, I'm going to set the offset of the z-axis to about 140, right? And for some reason, this is not updating dynamically. I'll fix it. So I just broke the link and made it again. So now you see that tables like these would have some books or scrolls on them. I'm going to reuse this marker emitter on another table and emit same tabletop decoration here as well. Now let's and again I'll have to fix the offset for, let's find my table first. Okay, we have one here. Again, I have to fix this size. So let's open up let's find it in the content browser. What is the height? It says that it's about 113. So let's select the emission node and let's change its offset to 113. 3, and you have stuff placed on it. So this is just a basic thing where you can do a lot more with it, but just you get the idea of, you can create a graph of arbitrary depth, right? And you can add a lot of interesting logic on this. Now we have these windows here, right? Let's go ahead and add some curtains on these. So I'm gonna add in a new marker, call it window, and add in a mesh node. Right, so now let's go ahead and emit this window marker from this mesh. That's because this wall mesh has a window in it. So emit a marker node called window, and you would see that windows would be added, but let's change the last one to 1, so it falls back always to this. Alright, so now we have windows, but they're coming in the opposite direction. So we can either go and change the offsets on all of these meshes, right? But instead I'm going to change it in this itself. Right, so I'm going to change this to rotation to 180. Just break that link and create it again so we can see an updated version. And now we have windows. Right, now what if we wanted say a carpet near the door, right? So let's create another one. Let's attach it directly to the door. I'm going to add a new mesh node. Select this unchecked ones you want to attach. Select this grid, add in a carpet. I think this would be good. And this would be good near the entrance. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this. Okay, so now we have a nice little carpet near the entrance. Let's give it a little offset to it, maybe on the outside, I guess. So along the Z, I'm going to give maybe 50, 100. So you can do a lot of stuff with this. It's extensible. If you want more control, you could just create a new marker node called door decoration, whatever, and emit that from here. That's your choice. So let's save this, go back to our main viewport, and let's rebuild the dungeon. Now if you set the seed to 0, it's gonna choose a random seed every time. Or you can set you can specify a seed and work with it. So now we have our scene built. Now there's another feature, right? You can modify these values that you see here, and you can have a different dungeon. But you can do only so much with these numbers, right? So what if an artist wanted to create something over here? You can't really tweak these numbers to create that geometry here. So you need more, as an artist, you might need more control, right? So so you can place your own custom geometry here, and it will blend in really nicely with the existing stuff that was created procedurally. So to do that, you're going to go to volumes and select dungeon platform volume, right? So I'm going to go ahead, drag and drop this, let's bring this all the way down. Right. Now, what a platform volume does is it creates a platform uh, around this this volume. So I need to first specify which dungeon this belongs to. Right. So I'm going to select this, go to the properties, and assign it the dungeon that we're working with, which is this one. Right. Now you see that this we have this our own custom user defined volume generator. You can go ahead and scale this along X, Y, whatever. Right, now watch what happens as I bring this close to an existing one. It just joins in and merges and blends in real nicely. Right, now I'm going to go ahead and say move this up a bit. What happens here? I'm going to bring this up, and you see a stair is created. And move this to the side. Now it might also, since these are all procedurally generated, the stuff that you place gets a higher priority. So it might even modify the other procedural geometry to match with this, right? So it might vary the height of the other geometry so that most of the area is accessible. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and so now let's create something over here that let's create a right now I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this. Go ahead and scale this a bit. And I don't know. Let's bring this down a bit. Yeah, okay. And select this. Make a copy of that. Right, and select this this geometry, maybe bring this up a bit. Right, now when I bring this up, you see that there is a staircase created here, but we don't have stairs here. The reason being that since this area is accessible from here by going all the way back there and then coming here, it did not create a stair, but you can control that from the configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and select the dungeon, and there's this stair connection tolerance. So I'm going to bring this down to 2 and build. I think it's not 1 millimeter. Okay. Let's also bring this up. And maybe add an opening in the middle. So let's make a copy of that. Scale this down. make another copy here, guess. Right, now maybe you decide that you want this to be a little further apart, right? So let's go ahead and move this. So it's looking pretty good, right? All of this was generated in design time by the designer, and so you have both procedural and manual control over the dungeon. So let's try playing this. So this is the stuff we created. So I'm going to work more on the rooms, so you can create. So the algorithm will create some partitions on the rooms and also create a few floors on the room. So you can have first floor, second floors, and so on, with stairs connecting them together. Right, so now since this is design time, you have the advantage of baked lights, so you can just bake them in. I also plan to add light nodes. So right now in the dungeon editor we just have mesh nodes. So I'll also add the ability to insert static lights, so you can bake them, or all types of lights, point lights, spotlights, and so on. So that is it for this update. Thanks for watching.